Chapter 1840. The gates of divine light. Loridek turned his head, and King Arthur and the others were shocked by his actions. At such a critical moment in the battle, he had the nerve to look away. But soon, they understood why Loridek no longer cared about them. Because beneath the abyss, which had been collapsing, there was suddenly an indescribable bright light. A white, holy light pierced the gloom of Chernobyl, rising like a sword into the sky. All the earth and stone instantly dissipated, turning to dust. Before everyone's eyes, a magnificent power unfurled like a rainbow-colored corridor, connecting to the sky. The light was so bright that it slowly unfurled in midair, taking on a circular shape, before falling back to the ground, quickly forming a perfect loop. A huge elliptical light door appeared before everyone's eyes. It was so huge that it was probably thousands of meters high, connecting to the sky, as if the door to heaven was unfolding before everyone. This scene left the crowd dumbfounded. Zhang Yi already had a feeling for what it was. As a bishop-level mutant with dual abilities in time and space, he knew that the huge white elliptical light door was a giant space tunnel. Is this what mechanical civilization has been working towards? What is behind this gate? Zhang Yi muttered to himself, looking at the enormous white doors. The doors radiated a bright and sacred light. All humans were dwarfed in front of them, like ants, unable to see past the tops of the doors. Loridek didn't even care about his own injuries. He opened his arms wide and shouted excitedly, "We've made it! We've finally found it!" The sudden and spectacular sight made everyone stop attacking. It was awe at the sight of the unfamiliar and mysterious. Because the moment that the doors appeared, they seemed to have a response of awe at the genetic level, like worshipping a god. "Look, in front of the doors, there's something there." Yang Xinxin's voice sounded in Zhang Yi's ear, pulling his mind back from the endless shock. Zhang Yi's gaze quickly swept the front. The white light door was so huge that the light, although not blinding, was enough to make people ignore the existence of everything around them. But when Zhang Yi deliberately looked for it, he discovered a shadow in the vast light. The intelligent device zoomed in, and the hazy image quickly became clear. Zhang Yi saw a humanoid creature floating in front of the huge doors. His back was turned to everyone else. He had a human-like body with a head, torso, and limbs. His body was covered in black metal armor, and his streamlined body was extremely elegant and beautiful, filled with a kind of violent beauty. It made people feel that he could burst out destructive power from his long and slender body at any time. His most iconic physical feature is the 3 pairs of huge, pitch-black wings growing from his back. They are not made of metal, but grow from flesh and blood, and each feather radiates the light of a living creature. A feeling of extreme danger welled up in Zhang Yi's heart. He did not display any powerful strength, but the combat awareness he had cultivated over a long period of time, as well as the instinctive time series ability users to predict danger, made him understand that this being in front of him was extremely dangerous. Zhang Yi silently protected everyone in front of him. He could not judge how powerful Six Wings was, but from the scene in front of him, it should be an existence higher than the demon god Loridek. Perhaps he is the true master of mechanical civilization. Zhang Yi's dimensional gate had already opened behind him, and he was prepared to escape this dangerous area at any time. He was no longer the same person as before. As a mutant of the White Bishop level, he had been improving his strength since the battle in Tianhai City, especially strengthening his ability to protect his life. His even more powerful abilities with time and space, combined with the advanced technology he had obtained from mechanical civilization, meant that even if he faced a being like the Hades Gatekeeper again, he would have a chance to escape before the other party could make a move. Once he sensed that something was amiss, he would choose to escape in the first instance. Loridek stood at the edge of the abyss, his eyes burning with madness as he gazed up at the 6 wings in the sky. "My lord, you have succeeded. The last spark of the Tsunaira will be ignited in you. The wishes of the 16,080,000,000 living creatures of the Tsunaira that you carry will help you restart civilization." The 6-winged sovereign looked at the enormous gates in front of him, paying no heed to the top-level humans standing by behind him. At this moment, the attention here and the hostility towards them does not come only from the military formation here. The eyes of all the major powers in the world are focused here. From the eastern Huashu Kingdom Xinjiang, Blizzard, City, Chang, and other regional capitals through Brahma, the Middle East to the Holy Roman Church's Vatican in the European continent and the capital of Columbia, Franklin. Countless pairs of eyes are fixedly staring at this sudden appearance. What is hidden behind those gates of light? Is it an ancient civilization? Meng Yuanjuan's eyes were filled with excitement, tension, and a hint of excitement. This could be a huge crisis, but at the same time, it could be a huge opportunity. Complex emotions filled his heart. Ho too looked at the image in front of her, which had been relayed back by members of Zhang Yi's team. Her dark eyes showed nothing of what she was thinking. Only after a long time did she murmur, "I can't even see what's going on there." Just as Black Dragon said, "It's really dangerous and off-limits." She sent a message to Zhang Yi thousands of kilometers away. It said, "Extremely dangerous, do not go near." Zhang Yi had not heard from Hoda for a long time, and his expression became serious when he received the message. After arriving in Fremont, his communication with the Huaxiu Kingdom had never stopped. He has not only been in contact with the Shenzhen side, but also with other major regions. After all, mobilizing the power of the state apparatus can provide him with a lot of convenience. But Hotu is not a chatterbox, and when she personally warns him, it means that the problem is already very troublesome. Zhang Yi of course knows that something is wrong. The enormous gates that mechanical civilization was able to open at such a great cost, sacrificing almost all of the mechanical legion, must hide unimaginable treasures behind them. But behind it, there is also unimaginable danger. Zhang Yi stared at the six-wings creature floating in the sky, his eyes dark, and half of his foot was already on the edge of the dimensional gate. If he wanted, he could immediately step back 4 kilometers. Even if the other party wanted to attack, the first target would be someone else. Zhang Yi only needed a little time to run to a safe distance. There was complete silence, because no one knew what was behind the huge light gate. However, they gradually discovered the creature with the 6 wings of the deity. One by one, they were filled with trepidation and did not want to leave, but they were too afraid to act due to their awe. The creature with the 6 wings did not care about their existence at all. It seemed to be performing some kind of ritual as it opened its arms wide. Lu Karen reminded Zhang Yi, he is firing a signal band into the light door. It should be a way of communication. Zhang Yi muttered, since there are doors and he is in no hurry to go in, does that mean there is an owner behind the doors? As if to verify his guess, they were not kept waiting for long. The huge light doors suddenly rippled like water, and then a huge, slender, white tentacle, emitting dazzling light, poked out. Everyone held their breath, their eyes fixed on the huge, white, glowing tentacle. 1 second later, a huge figure appeared from the doors. It turned out to be a huge octopus-like creature with a dozen identical white glowing tentacles attached to its spherical body. Each tentacle was visually more than 10 meters long. It appeared from behind the doors and landed on the ground very nimbly. This body shape allows it to move freely in any harsh environment. But then, more white glowing tentacles came out of the doors. One after the other, huge glowing octopus-like creatures appeared in the crowd's field of vision, crowding Zhang Yi's eyes. They were incredibly huge, and their entire body radiated a sacred and inviolable light. They ignored the humanoid creature with the 6 wings in front of them and instead silently lined up in front of the white light door. After seeing the glowing octopus-like creatures, the eyes of the 6-winged sovereign sparkled fiercely, unable to hide his inner shock. You really do still exist. You have not perished over the years, but remain strong. God, you really are the greatest of living creatures. You are worthy to be Kagago's most satisfied masterpiece, the favorite of the gods of this planet. At the headquarters of the Holy Roman Church in Western Europe, Pope Alexander X of the Vatican looked at this scene in front of him and suddenly stood up from his throne. His mummy-like body suddenly burst with energy, and his eyes shone as if he had seen a handsome young man. He raised his arms high. Eratus. This is Eratus, the guardian by the Messiah's side. Is the miracle finally coming?
Praise God.
He crossed himself repeatedly and prayed piously. The leaders of the world were watching this scene. Although they had seen many invasions by creatures from underground civilizations, this time, it was still an eye-opener that left them speechless. What the hell was that? This world is crazy. How can there be so many strange creatures? Are those gods from myths and legends? Why is it that when I see them, I don't feel any sense of danger or terror? Instead, from the core of my bones, I want to worship them piously. A huge octopus-like creature stood in front of the doors. Zhang Yi and the others watched as the same feeling washed over them all. Just as humans love the light, they felt no fear towards these creatures in front of them, but instead an instinctive sense of closeness. Time for them to think was short, for soon, something else appeared through the doors of light. Two glowing octopus-like creatures appeared from the doors, dragging a huge chariot behind them. On top of the chariot stood a huge silver knight, at least 10 meters tall. He was humanoid, no doubt about it. Covered in silver holy armor, it was impossible to determine whether he was a mechanical creature or a flesh and blood being. On his head was a cross helmet, and his entire face was divided into 4 by this huge silver cross. You couldn't see his eyes, but you could feel their position, as 2 orbs of light scanned everything. He looked in all directions. Although you couldn't see his face clearly, you could feel his detachment and indifference towards everything. But this indifference made sense. Eventually, his gaze fell on the sovereign of 6 wings. A voice rang in the head of the 6-winged sovereign. Are you prepared to die? The eyes of the 6-winged sovereign were full of fanaticism. As long as I can save my people and restore everything in the Sang era, what is there to fear in my death? The Knight of Cross said, Okay, then I'll give you a chance. His body made way for a path leading to the huge light doors. Whether you can pass the test depends on whether you have that ability. Loridek shouted excitedly, O King, please take the wishes of our entire Sang-era civilization with you as you pass the test of the Econ people. At this time, the 6-winged sovereign finally turned around and glanced at Loridek before his gaze swept over Zhang Yi and the others. It was like the wind blowing across the coldest Arctic tundra, blowing past their bodies and chilling their hearts. It was undisguised and blatant murderous intent. No, that guy is going to do something to us. Emperor Indra shouted in shock and anger, and then his 7 treasure golden steps quickly dimmed 3 levels. The panic in his eyes deepened as he tried 3 times, and all 3 times he was instantly killed. They were completely not on the same level. Only now did he understand why the 6-winged sovereign had not intervened before, when they had besieged Loridek for so long. Because from beginning to end, he had never considered humans his enemy. They were just some annoying insects. Now that he had achieved his goal, there was naturally no need for the humans who had dared to offend them to survive. Please give me a little time to wipe out these weak tribes, so that they will not disturb me from performing the sacred ritual of each and tribe, said the 6-winged sovereign to the Knight of Cross. The Knight of Cross did not say anything. He did not care about such things in the least. In his eyes, there was no difference between the 6-winged sovereign and humans. Would humans care about the battle between marching ants and termites? No, they would merely enjoy it as a spectacle. The 6-winged sovereign, Ishigard, was about to make his move on the humans. Zhang Yi and the others looked up, and on Ishigard's face they saw an evil, dark smile. An indescribable, terrifyingly powerful force emanated from Ishigard's body. At that moment, the word death appeared in Zhang Yi's and the others' minds at the same time. The huge word death filled their minds, causing them to hallucinate like a revolving lantern. A sense of extreme danger enveloped everyone at the scene, and it also scared the high-level humans watching everything that was happening here into cold sweat. In the Fremont's command center, Aliyev's face was distorted. Just by looking at Ishigard's eyes, he felt his heart nearly break. He could hardly find words to describe the fear that came from the depths of his soul. Only Zhang Yi, Alexei, Newton, and the others had seen it before. When they faced the Hades gatekeeper, they had also experienced such despair. Zhang Yi's hands and feet were completely cold. At this moment, there was only one thought in his heart, and that was to escape. He had never underestimated the strength of mechanical civilization, but after fighting the 10 demon gods, he had a standard of his own for the peak combat power of this civilization. However, the feeling Ishigard gave him exceeded his expectations. Without the slightest hesitation, his feet were about to step back into the dimensional gate and leave this land as fast as possible. Perhaps he would use the city defense sniper to provide long-range support to friendly forces, but he must put himself in the safest position possible. But at that moment, a white palm suddenly rested on his shoulder. "Don't worry." Zhang Yi's face was full of shock. He looked at the person incredulously, and there was a hint of playfulness in that familiar face. But those ice-blue eyes were tinged with a coldness that Zhang Yi had never seen before. "You!" Suddenly, there were several loud bangs in the sky, a roaring sound like an avalanche, getting closer and closer. Everyone looked up and saw several huge flashes of light falling rapidly towards them, dragging long trails in the sky. King Arthur's solemn expression cracked, and his pupils involuntarily narrowed. Reaper of Love. No one knew who had pressed the launch button for the Reaper of Love at such a time. Before the war, in order to ensure that the crisis of mechanical civilization would not spread, several countries had been ready to launch at any time. Someone, sensing a great threat, suddenly felt the urge to nip the instability in the bud and so pressed the launch button. The faces of everyone present suddenly paled. Even mutants of the White Chariot level, in the blast area of the high-yield Reaper of Love, few could survive. Apart from special ability users like Zhang Yi, others would have to pay a huge price even if they survived. Such a move was simply treating the lives of the mutant troops of the countries present like nothing. No one in the world would dare to take such a grave mistake. Even a child knows that it was an error made by someone in a high position out of excessive tension and fear. However, it was already too late. Ichigard sensed that danger was approaching. He simply looked up at the sky, having experienced the power of that kind of weapon before. Although it was a very primitive weapon, it had powerful destructive power. For him, it was not a big problem, but it would take some effort to deal with it. The point is, at such an important time, it is inevitable that it will dampen people's enthusiasm a bit. Ichigard was ready to make his move and intercept these Reapers of Love first. But before he made his move, someone else made the first move. The Knight of Cross looked up at the sky, and the gaze beneath his silver mask seemed a little curious. Then, an arm shining with dazzling white light instantly pierced the ground and soared towards the sky. Like a sharp sword leaving a glorious holy scar between heaven and earth, the silver arm intercepted all the Reapers of Love hurtling towards it. There was complete silence in the human camp. Everything that had happened had thrown the majority of people into a state of confusion, and they felt like they were dreaming. Whether it was the appearance of Ishigard or the creature that appeared behind the huge light doors, it was far beyond their understanding. They didn't even know what they should do at this moment. Resist? Fight? Fight? But in the face of those creatures before them, they deeply felt their own weakness. Even just raising their weapons in their hands and aiming them at them was an extremely ridiculous act. What entangled the Reaper of Love was not something else, but just the tentacle of one of the octopus-like creatures. That arm, like a frog's tongue catching a fly, precisely captured the Reaper of Love flying in the sky. But at this moment, the Reaper of Love and Madeira exploded. It exploded thousands of meters above the ground. Even at this distance, it was enough to destroy everything around it. The most powerful thermal weapon in human history had unimaginable destructive power. The blazing energy was instantly released from the metal bullet, and the dazzling light was like the flames of a demon, devouring everything in its path. However, that heart-stopping feeling only lasted for a split second, and it vanished. All energy fluctuations disappeared in midair. Janny stared up at the sky in shock. He didn't see what the octopus-like creature did. He just knew that all the power generated by the explosion of the Reaper of Love had completely disappeared. It was like a dream. Deadly silence enveloped the entire Chernobyl. Only the howling north wind remained, as if proclaiming the ridiculousness of mankind's self-righteous attacks. King Arthur clenched his sword in his hands and feet cold, Emperor Indra's eyes widened, and 2 lines of tears slowly flowed down the corners of his eyes. He couldn't see the future of the shining knight of the cross before him, and even his own future had become blurred. Khitan Empire Emperor Saladin hid his face under his black cloak, his figure wavering, and he was ready to escape at any time by turning into a shadow. Everyone's heart was suppressed to the point of despair. The opponent was completely out of this world, and they didn't know how to fight. And there were still more than 10 of these beings that could casually extinguish the Reaper of Love, not to mention the even more powerful Might of the Cross with the mask. A voice broke the silence of the air at this moment. It came from the six-winged sovereign of mechanical civilization, Ishigard. Gods, let me clean up these arrogant insects, lest they disturb the sacred ritual. This video ends here. Please like and subscribe for more episodes. Thanks.